staying in the customs union is basically staying in the European Union. We wouldn't be getting control of our trade arrangements, which is so crucial to looking to the future, and we would still be subject to EU regulations. We would be subject still to the European Court of Justice, and I don't really see any customs arrangement that wouldn't give us still that control really in different areas by the EU. So we voted to leave, and leave very clearly meant leaving the customs union, and any other suggestion of any other arrangement is just a polite way of saying we want to stay in and we want to go against the referendum result. I think it's important for the public to understand, and I think they actually do, is that there are a number of members of Parliament and members of the House of Lords, and indeed members of what could be broadly described as the establishment, who have never accepted the result of the referendum. They didn't think anyone would vote to leave. They don't like it, and they're determined by whatever methods possible to thwart our decision to leave, and if they can't actually stop us leaving, to get us to leave in such a way that it is basically Brexit in name only. And I think that there are, certainly in the Lords, people who are simply 100% keen to stop Brexit. In the Commons it's slightly more complicated because there are also people in the Commons who understandably from a Labour point of view want to defeat the government. So occasionally these two things get mixed up between people who maybe are pretty cynical about staying in the EU but wanting to make some kind of protest about the government. The way the House of Lords have behaved, of course their job is to scrutinise and to make proposals and to look at legislation, but a group of Lords started out with the sole purpose, when they got the withdrawal bill, their sole purpose was to see how it could be weakened and indeed destroyed. And some of those amendments, like for example taking out the date that we would leave, are absolutely vital that we put that date back in again. And I think what the public are now seeing is the really the face of the Lords that is just not acceptable anymore in a democratic country. And we've seen, of course, over 100 Lib Dem Lords who were there mainly because of the coalition government. Some of them had done very, very little in politics. And then we see all the Lords who have worked with or been paid by the European Union, getting pensions. So and they don't even declare that. So there's a whole group of people within the establishment in the House of Lords who, again, just want to destroy Brexit. And I'm afraid the way they're going at the moment, and certainly if they try to send something back again, if we defeat it in the Commons, then I think that will be absolutely clear that there will be a strong movement to completely change the makeup of the House of Lords, which I think is actually very sad, because I do think the House of Lords has a role, but if they abuse that role, they can't expect people to understand it and to continue to support it. I find it really disappointing the way the Irish government is in hock with the EU Commission to use the question of the border as a weapon really to again try to get the United Kingdom to stay in the customs union and in the single market. What people forget is that there is a border there already. It may not be very visible, but it is there because the Republic of Ireland has a different currency, has different excise duties, has corporation tax, different levels, and all of that at the moment is scrutinised in many different ways using technology. And so we do have cameras near the border, we do have number plate identification, we do have people being stopped and lorries occasionally being stopped at the moment. There is a border there, and with the right goodwill it works very well at the moment. There's a lot of cooperation between the two countries, customs officers and security and police, and with the right goodwill there is no reason why that could not continue when we leave the European Union. But of course they don't want that to happen because they don't want us to leave. And the danger for the Republic of Ireland, of course, is that if we end up with their intransigence and their lack of support for the United Kingdom, we will end up with no deal whatsoever. And that will be absolutely, really, I would say, pretty terrifying for the Republic of Ireland, the repercussions of a no deal. So my view is that the new Taoiseach, who has changed the attitude of the Irish government to Brexit from his predecessor, who was being very cooperative and having meetings about how we could make it work, really needs to look at what he's doing and to stop using the Belfast Agreement as some kind of weapon against Brexit. I think Theresa May wants to deliver Brexit. I think while she was a Remainer, her government has made those commitments, and she made them in her manifesto, and I think she wants to. My concern is that she is not being confident enough about our country's position in the world, and she is not being quite aggressive enough against the way the EU are trying to almost bully us. The British public don't like being bullied, and it's interesting that since we saw the way the EU commissioners behaved, and Barnier in particular and some of the others commissioners, their statements, many people in my constituency who voted to remain say to me now that they just want to get on with it, but also they don't actually like the way the EU is behaving. And you know, I think if there was another referendum, and I don't actually want another referendum because I think that's just no need for it whatsoever. But if there was, I'd be very confident that the Leave vote would be even greater and a bigger majority than last time. I think everyone wants a deal, so walking away, should we walk away? I think walk away is the wrong way of putting it. If, of course, we end up with a deal that is actually not in our interest and is really just trying to you know, stay in the EU with different in a different way, and with still all the restrictions that being a member of the EU puts on us, then I think we would have to say, well, I'm sorry, but we wanted a free trade deal, you don't want to give it to us. We would be better outside and using World Trade Organization rules. Now, that is not necessarily the best way, but it's certainly not a catastrophe, and it is an internationally recognised way of dealing with trade, and we would get our own position as a country back on the WTO rather than just being one of having someone from the EU representing us. So no, it wouldn't be a catastrophe, but it would be better if we could get this agreement. And I think the EU risk the danger that if they continue to be so intransigent and putting up so many barriers before we even get down to discussing trade properly, then there is a risk, yes, that we might have to say, sorry, we'll be like the rest of the world who are not in the EU and be under WTO rules. I think the public do feel that there is a move to try and water down what they voted for, and all those millions of Leave voters in this biggest ever democratic vote in the United Kingdom, I think should be making sure that they are absolutely chasing up their own Member of Parliament to remind them of what their MP perhaps said, particularly in the election after the referendum, where many Labour MPs who had been Remainers but saw their constituencies vote to leave had said that they would honour what their constituents had said. I think they should be getting their MPs and telling them what they think if they do anything that is really pretending that it's in the economic interest of the country but is actually about wrecking us leaving the European Union. And I would say to them also, be confident. Your views are just as important, more important than many people here in Parliament, and keep strong, because we are going to leave the EU and we're going to leave it properly.